Hi there everybody, I'm Fred Thomas and you are watching All Things Bike, and today we are speaking with Ethan Davis of the New England Human Powered Vehicle Rally. Ethan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, very excited to be here.
Hey, it's great to have you. Well, let me start with the term human powered vehicle. I mean, can you elaborate on it? What does it mean exactly?
Well, I think it's the meaning of it's probably changed somewhat. Originally, when I first got into this, which was probably maybe mid to late 90s, human-powered vehicle was kind of had to do more with racing, maybe. I'm not sure that human-powered vehicle is even used as much as it was when I first got into it.
Right.
But at least the way I use it, it's anything that's pedal-powered.
Right. So it wasn't, I mean, it included the planes, right? They're the pedal-powered planes. And,
yes,
and
exactly.
Anything that was human-powered. But for our purposes, it's clearly related to wheeled and bikes. But how is a human-powered vehicle different from a bike?
Well, I guess so the term is probably a little bit more specialized. Maybe it's just implied that human-powered vehicle probably refers more to typically recumbents or maybe enclosed recumbents.
Right.
So that probably just, it's a little bit more specialized, I think.
Right, and so that's how you'll be referring to it at the rally, and everyone's going to understand that we're talking about recumbents and trikes and quad cycles. But so now we got recumbents, which is essentially a bike that you pedal on your back. I mean, maybe you should explain. But and how does it compare to a trike and a quad cycle? Because there's three different crazy bikes.
You mean human-powered vehicles versus?
Well, no, recumbents versus a trike.
Okay, well, so recumbent just refers to the seating position, and so typically that would be you are sitting in kind of a more reclined position,
right?
Which is what recumbent. So you have recumbent bicycles or recumbent bikes and recumbent trikes.
Right.
So
and trikes have three wheels though.
Yes.
And so a recumbent bike is pretty much some recumbent bikes are two-wheeled vehicles, and
that's true.
And you have to balance. Anyway, what is how do people use a velo or a human-powered vehicle? I mean, is it a commuter, a racer, or a touring type?
Well, I guess so. Within that broad category of human-powered vehicles, there are all different sort of specialty vehicles.
Right.
Usually, I think in the United States, when people say human-powered vehicle, they probably would be referring to recumbent. So recumbent bike, recumbent trike. And I think probably most people who ride Velomobiles, which are enclosed recumbents, they probably wouldn't even use the term human-powered vehicles anymore.
Right.
They did probably maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
So now it's more Velomobiles. I guess the culture around Velomobiles has developed a little bit more in the States. So
yeah. Well, elaborate on that. Tell us about the culture of the Velomobile. I mean, there's cycling culture, but this is something different.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I got into it, there were probably, I was maybe the sole Velomobile owner in New England.
Really?
And since then, well, this was back probably late 90s. I started a website to promote them, and since then it's grown. Not that it's huge, but there's a core of people, actually probably Connecticut has the most Velomobilists of New England. But they get together regularly and they ride. And Velomobiles, most of the ones that people are buying nowadays are significantly faster than anything else that's pedal powered.
Right.
So it becomes frustrating and annoying to ride with people who are slower because you just basically, you're not riding together.
Yeah. You accelerate. I mean, why are they faster? Is it the aerodynamics or the wheels and the gears? Or,
exactly.
Or it's the aerodynamics?
Primarily the aerodynamics. Yeah, I would say like the gears and all that is pretty much more or less standard equipment to what you'd find on any bike, but the aerodynamics made such a big difference. It's amazing.
Wow. I mean, is it how so? I mean, are they carbon now, or?
It's just the way that so there's a lot of, like when you're riding along, even if you're in like a full tuck, if you're riding on a road bike, there's turbulence, there's all kinds of stuff. And the Velomobiles have gotten to the point where they've figured out how to control the airflow as it goes over the vehicle.
Right.
And it makes it so that, cruising in like maybe the mid-20s doesn't take very much effort at all.
Wow.
And with some effort, you can go, I mean, I was riding several years ago. I had a commercially produced vehicle, and we were on Chappaquiddick down
in Massachusetts.
Martha's Vineyard, right? Part of Martha's Vineyard. And I think we probably did maybe 10 miles, and we were basically between 25, 35 the whole time. And I'm not a particularly fit cyclist, so
Wow, I mean that's fantastic. So I mean, how do you steer the thing? I mean, again, it's a Velomobile. It's a human-powered vehicle. Does it have 2 wheels or 3 wheels? It's a 3-wheel air thing with a
right.
And you're going 25 miles
So
an hour.
Velomobiles typically, I guess even the definition of a Velomobile has changed a little bit. It seems like most of the people who are very enthusiastic about it are going to say Velomobiles need to have 3 wheels.
Okay.
When I first got into it, I tried to keep the definition a little bit more vague and general so that a 2-wheel fully enclosed pedal-powered thing would be included in that.
Right.
But it seems like most Velomobilists now are rejecting that and they say, no, it's 3 wheels.
Right.
Which, you know, I'm not going to fight it.
Yeah,
Whatever,
no,
that's fine.
But so even something that heavy and 3 wheels is going to allow you to drift along at 25 to 30 miles an hour. That's fascinating. Well, then how do you steer it?
So typically Velomobiles with the 3 wheels, they're going to have 2 wheels in the front. And the way that they're linked is somewhat similar. That's pretty similar actually to the way they do it on cars, which have 2 wheels in the front. So there'll be handlebars, or actually a lot of the Velomobiles have like a joystick in the middle, so that you twist it and it'll take the two front wheels and turn them together.
Yeah, just like that. And then how do you brake? I mean, is it you've got hand brakes or?
That's a good question.
Shift gearings. I mean,
so most common on Velomobiles are drum brakes. So they'll have 2 drum brakes in the front. And so if you have that tiller or the joystick in the middle, there's actually one lever that usually controls both drum brakes from that one lever.
Okay.
Not always. There are some models that actually have tank steering, and they'll have independent braking for the left and the right.
Right. So you can have one lever activate all the brakes on the the system.
Or if in the case of the tank steering, you have one left and right, and sometimes you can actually even use that to help you steer. So if you start to turn and you brake, it's going to pull you in that direction.
Right.
So.
And what about the shifting? Is that on the other part of the tiller?
Yep. So a lot of them have great grip shifts. Some of them like to go with bar ends,
Yeah.
but it's all located on that tiller typically. Or if you have the tank steering,
Right.
You'll have a left and a right, which front and rear, which that's kind of what I've got.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Exactly.
But,
yeah, no, but it's just fascinating. And I mean, how fast have you managed to make your Velomobile go? I mean, have you sort of said, whoa, I'm going 55 miles an hour here. It's time to slow down.
I don't think I've personally. A lot of it has to do with the terrain that you're riding in, but. Kind of an anecdote that I like to share is how I got stopped in Kennebunk for speeding. So I happened to be on a road with a slight downgrade, and I was going 45, not really pushing it too hard, but somebody called into the police and said that they saw a yellow motorized vehicle proceeding at a high rate of speed, and they called in. There was no motor in it, but they pulled me over on Main Street. It was raining and kind of embarrassing, but but funny too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I guess we all got to pay attention to the rules of the road, but it's remarkable. Well, and what about the maintenance? I mean, are they easy to work on?
Good question. So that depends on the design. So the vehicles that I've had, for the most part, they've got the kind of a top half and a lower half of the body, and they're fastened together with bolts. So to get them apart is a bit of a job. And so a lot of times they'll have footholes underneath. So as your feet go through a full circle, they'll pass through those footholes. But you can also flip it over on its side and work through those. Not easy to do. So there's actually another design where you can actually remove the whole front nose and the tail if you happen to get a flat in the back. And it makes it a lot easier to work on. And I think actually they're starting to incorporate hatches more, that you can pull off the hatch so that you can work on it. It's a little bit easier than sort of the previous generation of vehicles.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, well, who makes these trikes and human powered vehicles? It's certainly not the big 3 bicycle manufacturers.
No.
Who's making them, and where do we buy them?
Yeah.
What's that part of it?
So probably the oldest manufacturer around is it's Danish, and Denmark is not really considered a leader right now. Most of them that are in current production are either German or Dutch. The Dutch actually took the lead for quite a while, and now Germans are kind of doing stepping forward a little bit. Although still, I would say most of them are Dutch. And for probably a decade or so, there was a Canadian company, Blue Velo, which had cooperative relationship with the main manufacturer in the Netherlands, but they've gotten out of the business. So
I see. I mean, is there any one single brand that we should know that sort of leaps?
Well, I think there are probably 2 Yeah, I don't want to say two because there's actually more than that. It's sort of like in flux which one's going to be. But Velomobile.nl is, they've probably been the leader for quite some time, although there are other competitors now that are coming up. And one of the partners in that organization broke away to form Intercity Bikes.
Okay.
So they have a different take on what Velomobile should be.
Right.
Velomobile NL actually produces a quad. It's the first four-wheel Velomobile that's in production. And then there's a company, I'm not sure if the company's called Milan, but I know their models are Milan.
Right.
And then
right. So
I think those are prime.
Those are the big two. I mean, the equivalent of they're the leaders. Well, then, but then isn't there a whole sort of people who actually make these things on their own using kits and homemade approaches as well?
Yeah. Well, so Velomobiles can be pretty pricey, so there is an interest in people figuring out how they can do that in a more cost-effective way for, if you're interested in it, but you don't have the money to spend.
Right. Okay, so it's similar to regular bikes, I suppose.
There actually is a manufacturer in Texas that produces kind of an older design. They bought the rights from that Dutch company. And it's pop riveted aluminum, like the way you build airplanes. So they call theirs the FAW or FAW Plus. And so those kits are somewhat less expensive than if you were to buy, some of the composite machines that are out there.
Right. Wow. Well, so there's selection out there, and all we have to do is take a look at the web and do our research. But from your experience, I mean, you've been doing it since the 90s, you said, and I mean, how have you been using one of these vehicles? Are you touring? Are you racing? Or are you just commuting? Or
primarily, I'm a commuter. Regardless of whether I'm riding a Velomobile or I rarely ride upright bikes, but recumbents. Mostly commuting and sort of local trips for shopping and things like that. But people do tour on them, and there was actually several years ago a group that went all the way across the United States. I believe they went from Portland they wound up in Washington, D.C. There was a large number. I can't remember exactly how many, but there were a lot.
It seems like it makes sense, but then I don't know where you would carry your tent or whatever you need.
A lot of cargo space in these machines.
Is there really? Okay, well, we'll see that soon. But I mean, it makes so much sense when you're trying to get across Iowa or Nebraska.
Right.
Being aerodynamic.
I think they were supported, but people do unsupported tours, and they can carry all their stuff in the Velomobile. Commuters, a fair number of people do commute, touring, sort of more maybe day pleasure rides. And some people race them.
I haven't seen one around. I might have seen a recumbent in the height of summer. I mean, what's it feel like? What's the experience? I mean, you're low on the ground and you're going fast. I mean, do people see you, or do you feel like you're being seen, or what's the ride experience?
Well, so that's interesting. If you're talking Velomobiles versus recumbents, Velomobiles are significantly faster, and that can sometimes take car riders. They're not expecting something that's that unusual looking to be going. They usually almost always assume that there's a motor in it.
Wow.
And so if you're riding on the right, as you should with a bike, and most Velomobile riders are going to do that most of the time. That figuring out how to kind of mesh with traffic safely takes some experience. Recumbents, on the other hand, is sort of a different riding experience, and the main benefit of that is comfort, I think.
Yeah, right. And when we say and think of recumbent, we're thinking of that recumbent bicycle with the flag, the long flag, the orange thing, and human-powered vehicle, where the image is the enclosed, aerodynamic looking bike, and we'll get to that. But well, let's talk about the New England Human Powered Vehicle Rally. Where is that happening? When? Give us the details.
Well, so for the last, the first one that I did was in 2004, and I did that in Western Massachusetts for a number of years. And then sort of life circumstances changed. I wanted to get it a bit closer to home. So I did one in Portsmouth, and then I have done them for the last several years in Kennebunk. And then actually this year, I decided to move it up to Portland. So we're going to do it at Fort Allen Park here in Portland, July 14th.
All right, and it's what's the schedule of events? It's an all-day thing. What happens over the course of this?
Well, so what I'm doing for this year is we're going to start out with a ride, and we're going to go on some of the local bike paths to start, and we're going to kind of do a loop ride so that we wind up probably about 20 miles or so, which is actually not that much for a Velomobile, but it's quite possible I'll just ride a recumbent. most of the people who do show up are recumbent riders, and I think I've had maybe 1 or 2 Velomobile riders the whole time, which is not to say this year hopefully will be different, but
yeah. Well, I mean, we're getting the word out, and who knows? And do you have to bring a recumbent bike or
No.
human powered vehicle to be part of this? I mean,
So just to kind of finish up the first part, so we're going to have the ride, and then we'll come back for probably 2-hour or so expo portion.
Okay, great.
Right. So if you're going to do the ride, you need something to ride.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be recumbent. It can be anything that's pedal powered, or even if it's pedal powered and assisted, you could do that too.
Yeah.
And then the afternoon, it's you don't have to bring a bike at all. Part of it is to just kind of spread the joy. And,
right. So there's an expo. There'll be some tents, and people will have their various vehicles and recumbents on display.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the tent thing. I mean, there is a pavilion at Fort Allen.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see.
There'll be some sort of center of events and action, and so when does it start? The morning ride is 8, 9?
I believe I was saying that it starts at 9. And then so we'll go out, ride for a few hours. The plan is to hopefully be back by around noon, 12:30.
Right.
And then I think we have until 2 or 3 to kind of do the hangout, show and tell type portion of it.
And how many people have attended this type of event?
Well, pretty wide ranging. So when I was doing them in Western Massachusetts, one year we got up to 70 actual riders. There were more than that with the people who are just coming to check things out. Since I've moved it back to Kennebunk, it's gotten a lot smaller. So typically I'd have maybe 5 people going on the ride.
Yeah, well.
And I'm hoping to, with moving it to Portland, that we'll have, a bigger turnout than that.
Yeah, no, well, it will be an event, and we'll make sure that everyone, as many people as possible, know about it, and that's great, Ethan. Well, look, thanks so much for stopping by and talking about these vehicles in the rally, and we will hopefully see you there. I'm going to try and make it.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.
That was Ethan Davis of the New England Human Powered Vehicle Rally. If you want to learn more about the rally, you can see it on Facebook. And if you have any more questions or interest in human-powered vehicles, take a look online and you will see a lot of great stuff. That's all we've got time for right now. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you again soon.
All Things Bike with Fred Thomas is brought to you by Zentis, performance carbon wheels handmade in Austria for road and off-road riding. Zentis, next generation wheels. And Frame and Wheel eBay bike selling services. Time, space, cash. Pick 3. And AD Bikes, the modern face of Austro-Daimler cycling and the bike company of the future.